First contact gone wrong. The void between stars held secrets that humanity had only begun to unravel. Captain Sarah Chen stood at the observation deck of the HFY Horizon, Earth's most advanced deep space research vessel, watching the unfamiliar constellation patterns that marked their position at the edge of mapped space. The ship's mission was simple: push the boundaries of human exploration and gather data about this unexplored region of space. "Captain, we're picking up something unusual." Lieutenant Marcus Rodriguez's voice crackled through the ship's comm system. "The quantum sensors are detecting patterns that don't match any known natural phenomena." Chen made her way to the bridge, her magnetic boots clicking against the metal floor. The Horizon's bridge was a testament to human engineering, a perfect blend of functionality and innovation. Holographic displays showed real-time data streams, while the transparent aluminum viewport offered an unobstructed view of space. "Show me," she ordered, settling into her command chair. The main display lit up with a complex wave pattern that pulsed with an eerily regular rhythm. Dr. Emily Wong, the ship's lead xenophysicist, was already analyzing the data. Her fingers danced across the holographic interface as she pulled up comparison charts. "It's definitely artificial, Captain. The pattern suggests a level of technology far beyond our current capabilities. If I had to guess, I'd say we're looking at a form of quantum entanglement communication." Chen felt a familiar mix of excitement and apprehension. First contact protocols had been drilled into every crew member, but theory and practice were very different things. "Distance to source: approximately 2.3 light hours, Rodriguez reported. "We could reach it in about 6 days at maximum safe speed." Chen took a moment to consider their options. The Horizon was a research vessel, not a warship, but it was equipped with the latest defensive technologies. Their mission parameters were clear: explore, document, and if possible, make peaceful contact with any intelligent life they encountered. "Send the standard greeting package on all frequencies," Chen ordered, "and notify Earth Command of our findings. Dr. Wong, I want continuous analysis of that signal. Lieutenant Rodriguez, plot an intercept course but maintain our distance until we get a response." The next 48 hours were tense with anticipation. The signal continued its steady pulse, but there was no response to their greeting. Earth Command's reply arrived, giving them cautious approval to investigate while emphasizing the need for extreme caution. As they drew closer, the signal grew stronger. Dr. Wong's team worked around the clock, trying to decode its meaning. On the 4th day, everything changed. "Captain," Wong's voice carried an urgency that made Chen's spine stiffen. "The signal, it's changing." The main display showed the once regular pattern fracturing into chaos. Before Chen could respond, a massive structure seemed to materialize from nowhere, directly in their path. It was like nothing human eyes had ever seen. A geometric impossibility that seemed to fold in on itself, its surface shifting between states of matter. "Full stop," Chen commanded. "Defensive systems online." The Horizon's engines whined as they fought against their momentum. The strange structure remained motionless, but new signals began bombarding their sensors. "Multiple quantum signatures detected," Rodriguez reported, his voice steady despite the tension. They're everywhere, Captain. We're surrounded." Ships emerged from what appeared to be tiers in space itself, sleek, organic-looking vessels that defied human understanding of spacecraft design. Their surfaces rippled like liquid metal, and they moved with an agility that shouldn't have been possible for their size. "This is Captain Sarah Chen of the Earth Science Vessel Horizon." She broadcast on all frequencies. "We come in peace as representatives of humanity." The response came not through their communication systems, but directly into their minds, a presence so alien and vast that several crew members collapsed from the mental contact. "Your species ventures far, little ones," the thought voice resonated in their consciousness. "We are the Nexari, and you have entered our testing grounds." Before Chen could respond, energy patterns unlike anything in human records surrounded the Horizon. The ship's systems began failing one by one, and the last thing Chen saw before losing consciousness was the strange geometric structure seeming to reach out with tentacles of pure energy. When she awoke hours later, the horizon was dead in space. Half the crew was unconscious, and their position had changed dramatically. They were now several light years from their last known location. Most disturbing of all, 20 crew members, including Dr. Wang and her entire research team, had vanished without a trace. The ship's logs showed only static for the missing hours, and their quantum sensors were completely fried. As emergency power slowly brought systems back online, Chen made a ship-wide announcement. "All hands, this is the captain. We've just made first contact with an advanced alien species, and they've taken our people. I don't know why, and I don't know where they are, but I make this promise. We will find our missing crew. This isn't the end of our encounter with the Nexari. It's just the beginning." As the horizon limped back toward Earth, Chen knew humanity had just been thrust into a game where they didn't know the rules. But if there was one thing humans excelled at, it was adapting to impossible situations. The Nexari had just learned a crucial lesson about humanity. They don't abandon their own. The question wasn't if they would return, but what price they would have to pay to get their people back. And as Chen looked at the determination in the eyes of her remaining crew, she knew that price, whatever it might be, would be paid in full. The price of knowledge. 3 months after the Horizon incident, Earth's response was anything but passive. The disappearance of 20 crew members had sparked a mobilization unprecedented in human history. Deep space monitoring stations detected increased activity in the sector where the Nexari had been encountered, but the mysterious aliens remained elusive. Admiral James Kane stood before the United Earth Defense Council, his weathered face illuminated by the holographic display showing the latest intelligence data. "The Nexari aren't just testing us," he declared. "They're studying our responses. Every probe we've sent into their space has disappeared, but not before transmitting data about increasingly complex structures in that sector." Dr. Victor Patel, the lead scientist of Project Insight, stepped forward. His team had been analyzing the corrupted data recovered from the Horizon's quantum sensors. "We've discovered something disturbing in the residual quantum signatures," he announced. "The Nexari technology doesn't just manipulate spacetime. It seems to operate on principles that suggest they can perceive and interact with multiple dimensions simultaneously." The council chamber erupted in murmurs. Humanity had theorized about higher dimensions for centuries, but practical applications had remained elusive. If the Nexari could manipulate these dimensions at will, the technological gap between their species was even wider than feared. But humanity had a secret weapon. One of the Horizon's crew members had managed to preserve a small quantum storage device containing recordings of the Nexari's mental contact. Dr. Sarah Chen, the Horizon's former captain, now headed the team analyzing this data. "The Nexari didn't just take our people," Chen explained, her voice steady despite the weight of her words. "They took specific individuals, every single person who had direct contact with their quantum signatures. Dr. Wang's entire research team had been mapping the unusual patterns we detected. They weren't random targets, they were chosen. The implications were clear. The Nexari weren't simply testing humanity's technology. They were assessing their potential for understanding higher dimensional physics. The missing crew members weren't just prisoners. They were test subjects." Meanwhile, in a classified facility beneath the Pacific Ocean, humanity's response was taking shape. Project Phoenix, a joint venture between Earth's leading scientists and military strategists, had been working around the clock to develop countermeasures against Nexari technology. Dr. Maya Patel, Victor's sister and the project's lead researcher, stood in a chamber surrounded by experimental quantum field generators. "The Nexari's advantage lies in their ability to perceive and manipulate multiple dimensions," she explained to the observation team. "But what if we could create a field that forces everything within it to operate in strictly three-dimensional space?" The theory was revolutionary, Instead of trying to match the Nexari's superior technology, they would force them to operate within human limitations. The challenges were enormous, but early tests showed promise. Then came the breakthrough they hadn't expected. During a routine test of the dimensional containment field, one of the missing Horizon crew members suddenly materialized in the chamber, or what was left of him. The body of Lieutenant James Cooper was intact, but his mind was gone. Medical scans showed his brain had been altered at the quantum level. The data recovered from Cooper's neural implants was horrifying. The Nexari weren't just studying human consciousness. They were trying to understand how three-dimensional beings perceive reality. Each test subject was exposed to higher dimensions while their minds were scanned, mapped, and ultimately destroyed by the experience. Dr. Chen received the news with stoic determination. They're not just testing us, she realized. They're trying to understand why we can't naturally perceive what they see. Every test subject is an experiment in human consciousness. The revelation changed everything. The rescue mission now had a deadline. Every day that passed meant more of the captured crew might be lost to the Nexari's experiments. But rushing in without adequate preparation would be suicide. Project Phoenix accelerated its timeline. Dr. Maya Patel's team worked tirelessly to perfect the dimensional containment field, while military engineers integrated the technology into a new class of stealth vessels designed to penetrate Nexari space. The first successful test of the technology came at a heavy price. During an attempted deployment of the containment field, 3 scientists were exposed to higher dimensional energy. Their minds shattered instantly, but their sacrifice provided crucial data about the field's effectiveness. "The field works," Maya reported to the Council. "For exactly 8.3 minutes, we can force a defined space to operate in purely 3 dimensions. After that, the power requirements become unsustainable, and the field collapses." 8 minutes. It wasn't much time for a rescue operation, but it was all they had. The real question was whether the human mind could handle the transition between dimensional states without being destroyed in the process. The answer came from an unexpected source. Analysis of Cooper's neural implants revealed that his consciousness hadn't been destroyed. It had been transformed. The Nexari experiments had forced his mind to adapt to higher dimensional perception, and while the process had driven him insane, it proved that human consciousness could theoretically survive the experience. Dr. Chen volunteered to lead the rescue mission herself. "We know where they are now," she told Admiral Kane. Cooper's neural data included coordinates, not in 3-dimensional space, but in quantum states. With the containment field, we can reach them. The Council debated for 3 days before approving the mission. The stakes were clear. Success meant saving the remaining crew and gaining crucial intelligence about Nexari technology. Failure meant losing more people to their experiments. As preparations for the rescue mission entered their final phase, Dr. Chen stood in her quarters looking at a photo of her missing crew. The Nexari had underestimated humanity's determination to protect its own. They thought they were studying a lesser species, but they were about to learn that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their technology or their understanding of physics. It was their absolute refusal to abandon hope, even in the face of impossible odds. The price of knowledge had been high, but the Nexari were about to learn that some prices were too high to accept. The rescue mission would launch in 12 hours. Whether they succeeded or failed, one thing was certain. The Nexari would never look at humanity the same way again. Breaking point. Operation Stormbreak launched under absolute secrecy. The ESV Shadow Strike, humanity's first dimensional warfare vessel, slipped through Earth's defense perimeter carrying a crew of 30 volunteers. Each member had been specifically chosen for their psychological resilience and underwent months of specialized training to prepare for exposure to higher dimensions. Captain Sarah Chen stood at the helm, her new neural interface humming with data. The ship itself was a masterpiece of human engineering. Its hull incorporated quantum-resistant alloys developed from studying the residual energy signatures left on the horizon, while its core housed Dr. Maya Patel's revolutionary dimensional containment system. All systems nominal, reported Lieutenant Maria Santos, the ship's tactical officer. Dimensional field generators at standby. We can sustain full containment for exactly 8.3 minutes once activated. Chen nodded, her expression grim. That's 8.3 minutes to find our people and get out. No room for error. She turned to Dr. Victor Patil, who had insisted on joining the mission. Status of the quantum beacon. Operating within parameters, Victor replied, monitoring the device that would theoretically allow them to track the quantum signatures of the missing crew members. But Captain, there's something you should know. The latest simulations suggest that each activation of the containment field will create ripples in the dimensional spectrum. The Nexari will know we're coming. Good. Chen's voice was steel. Let them come. Engineering status. Chief Engineer Raj Khan's voice came through the comm. Engines at full capacity, Captain. The new quantum shielding is holding steady. Whatever the Nexari throw at us, we can take it. At least for those 8.3 minutes. The journey to the coordinates extracted from Lieutenant Cooper's neural data took 4 days. As they approached the target location, reality itself seemed to warp around them. The ship's conventional sensors became unreliable, forcing them to rely on the quantum detection systems. Contact. Santos called out. Multiple dimensional anomalies detected. Configuration matches Nexari signatures. The main display showed what appeared to be tears in the fabric of space, the same phenomenon they'd witnessed during the Horizon incident. But this time, they were ready. All hands, battle stations, Chen ordered. Initiate dimensional containment field on my mark. The Nexari response was immediate. Ships emerged from the dimensional tiers, their fluid metal hulls shifting in ways that defied physics. But before they could bring their superior technology to bear, Cheng gave the order. Mark. The containment field activated, and for a moment, it seemed like reality itself screamed. The Nexari ships, forced into three-dimensional space, lost their fluid grace. Their organic-looking hulls became rigid, locked into single forms. Field holding. Victor reported. 7 minutes, 45 seconds remaining. Chen didn't waste a second. Full power to forward quantum torpedoes. Target the nearest ship and fire. The Shadow Strike's weapons had been specifically designed for this moment. The quantum torpedoes, carrying payloads of force three-dimensional energy, struck the nearest Nexari vessel. Unable to shift between dimensions, the alien ship's hull cracked like glass. Multiple contacts inside the largest structure. Victor called out. Human quantum signatures confirmed. They're alive. The Nexari weren't helpless, even locked in 3 dimensions. Energy beams lashed out at the Shadow Strike, testing its shields. The ship shuddered, but held together. 5 minutes remaining. Victor's voice was tense. Captain, the quantum signatures are fluctuating. They're trying to move our people into higher dimensions. Chen had prepared for this. Deploy insertion teams. Authorization Omega-7. 3 shuttles launched from the Shadow Strike's bay, each carrying a tactical team equipped with personal dimensional stabilizers, experimental devices that would theoretically protect them from dimensional shifts. The next 4 minutes were chaos. The tactical teams breached the Nexari structure, fighting through defenses that seemed to defy logic even in 3 dimensions. The Nexari themselves appeared as shifting, multi-limbed creatures, their bodies struggling to maintain coherence in limited dimensional space. 3 minutes. Victor's warning was urgent. Field stability at 60%. The rescue teams reported success. They'd found 16 survivors of the original 20. Some were in stasis pods, others in what appeared to be testing chambers. The Nexari had indeed been experimenting with human consciousness, trying to understand how 3-dimensional beings perceived reality. 2 minutes. Field stability critical. The shuttles began returning, carrying their precious cargo. But the Nexari weren't going to let them escape easily. More ships emerged from beyond the field's edge, waiting to strike the moment the containment failed. All shuttles docked. Santos reported. But Captain, The Nexari ships are positioning themselves in a containment pattern. The moment our field drops, they'll trap us here. Chen's mind raced. The conventional plan was impossible now. They couldn't outrun or outfight the Nexari fleet once the containment field failed. But there was another option, one so dangerous it had been unanimously rejected during mission planning. "Dr. Patel," she called out. "The field collapse. What happens to the energy?" Victor's eyes widened as he realized what she was suggesting. "It creates a dimensional shockwave. But Captain, if we're at the epicenter when it fails?" Better than being captured, Chen's decision was made. All hands, brace for dimensional shock. Engineering, route all power to the quantum shields. We're riding the wave out. The final 30 seconds were a countdown to either salvation or destruction. As the field began to collapse, Chen gave her final order. Now. The dimensional containment field didn't just fail, it exploded. The released energy created a ripple through multiple dimensions, catching the surrounding Nexari ships in a cascade of shifting realities. The Shadow Strike, protected by its quantum shields, was hurled through space like a leaf in a hurricane. When they finally stabilized, they were light years from the battle site. Half the crew was unconscious, and every system on the ship was strained to its limits. But they had succeeded. 16 survivors, each carrying vital intelligence about Nexari technology and intentions, were safe in medical stasis. As emergency repairs began, Chen received the first medical reports. The rescued crew members had been changed by their ordeal. Their minds had been altered to perceive higher dimensions. Most would never be the same, but they were alive, and their experiences would be crucial in humanity's ongoing struggle to understand their new reality. The Nexari had underestimated humanity's resourcefulness and determination. They thought their technological superiority made them invulnerable. Instead, they had learned a costly lesson. When pushed to their breaking point, humans don't break. They evolve. The rescued crew members would need months of rehabilitation, but their ordeal had given humanity something invaluable: first-hand knowledge of higher dimensional physics and Nexari technology. The price had been high, but the knowledge gained would help protect Earth from whatever the Nexari planned next. As the Shadow Strike limped home, Chen knew this wasn't the end. The Nexari wouldn't forget this defeat easily, but humanity had proven something important. In any dimension, the human spirit remained unbreakable. The human factor. 6 weeks after Operation Stormbreak, the implications of the rescue mission were still unfolding. In a secure facility beneath the Rocky Mountains, the 16 rescued crew members had become both patients and invaluable resources. Their minds, altered by Nexari experiments, could perceive aspects of reality that normal humans couldn't comprehend. Dr. Emily Martinez, Earth's leading expert in xenoneurology, stood before a holographic display showing brain scans of the survivors. Their neural architecture has been fundamentally altered, she explained to the assembled military and scientific leadership. They're not just seeing higher dimensions, they're understanding them. Former Lieutenant Sarah Wong, one of the survivors and Dr. Wong's daughter, sat in a specially designed chamber that dampened dimensional interference. Her eyes, now with a subtle iridescent quality, focused on something no one else could see. "They're coming," she said, her voice distant yet urgent. "The Nexari. They're not just scientists. They're running from something. Something worse." The revelation sent shockwaves through Earth's leadership. Captain Chen, still recovering from the rescue mission, was called in to meet with Sarah. The younger Wong had been one of the first taken by the Nexari, and her mind had adapted more successfully than most of the dimensional alterations. "While they were studying us, I was studying them," Sarah explained, her words carefully chosen. "Their technology, their society, it's all built around dimensional manipulation because they're trying to hide. There's something out there that hunts through dimensions, consuming entire civilizations. The Nexari found us because they're looking for allies, species with the potential to help them fight." Chen felt a chill run down her spine. "They took our people, experimented on them, instead of just asking for help. They don't think like we do, Sarah replied. To them, three-dimensional beings are primitive. They needed to know if we could adapt, evolve. And we did. We survived what should have killed us. Now they're afraid, not just of what's hunting them, but of us. The intelligence sparked urgent debates in Earth's Defense Council. The Nexari threat hadn't diminished, but it had transformed. They weren't invaders or conquerors. They were desperate refugees looking for weapons against an even greater threat. Dr. Maya Patel's team worked around the clock with the survivors, using their insights to enhance the dimensional containment technology. The survivors could see flaws and possibilities that normal human perception missed entirely. It's not about fighting through dimensions, Sarah explained during one session. It's about understanding how they flow. The Nexari use brute force because they don't understand limitation. But humans, we understand working within constraints. That's our advantage. Progress came at a price. 3 of the survivors couldn't handle the strain of their enhanced perception, their minds fracturing under the weight of understanding too much reality. The others struggled with nightmares of infinite space and geometries that shouldn't exist. Then came the message. The Nexari, using frequencies that only the survivors could perceive, reached out. They had underestimated humanity's adaptability and determination. Now they offered a choice: alliance or isolation. The message was clear. The threat they feared was approaching, and they needed humanity's unique perspective. 3-dimensional beings thought differently, solved problems differently. Where the Nexari saw unlimited possibilities, humans saw practical solutions. Sarah translated the message, her altered mind bridging the gap between species. They're offering to share their technology, teach us to defend ourselves, but they want access to more human volunteers for their adaptation process. The debate raged for days. The survivors themselves were divided. Some, like Sarah, argued that humanity needed this alliance to survive what was coming. Others, traumatized by their experiences, warned against trusting the Nexari. Captain Chen, now promoted to admiral, proposed a third option. We don't need their process, she argued. Our survivors have already learned to perceive higher dimensions. We can study how their minds adapted and develop our own method, one that doesn't destroy people in the process. The survivors proved her right. Working with human scientists, they began developing training techniques that could gradually expand human consciousness without the trauma of forced adaptation. It was slower than the Nexari process, but it was sustainable. Sarah led the research, her unique perspective bridging the gap between human and higher dimensional understanding. The Nexari think in absolutes, full adaptation or none. But humans, we can walk the line between dimensions. We can learn to see without losing ourselves. The breakthrough came when Sarah and Dr. Martinez discovered that human consciousness naturally resonated with certain dimensional frequencies. By carefully tuning these resonances, they could expand awareness without shattering the mind. Earth's response to the Nexari offer reflected this discovery. They would accept the alliance, but on human terms. No more forced adaptations. Instead, they would share their method of gradual consciousness expansion, a way to create understanding between species without destruction. The Nexari's initial response was dismissive, but the survivors could sense their underlying emotion. Fear, not of humanity, but of change. They had never encountered a species that could find a middle path between dimensions. Admiral Chen stood in the facility's observation deck, watching Sarah work with the first volunteers for the new consciousness expansion program. The young woman's movements were fluid, as if she existed in multiple spaces at once, but her eyes were clear and focused. We're not just saving ourselves, Sarah told her. We're showing them a new way to exist. The threat they fear moves through dimensions like they do. But we can teach them to think differently, to fight differently. The human factor, it seemed, wasn't just about survival or adaptation. It was about finding solutions that transcended dimensional boundaries, solutions that could only come from a species that understood both limitation and possibility. As the first successful graduates of the new program began to perceive higher dimensions while maintaining their human perspective, Earth prepared for what was coming. The Nexeri had sought weapons against the darkness between dimensions. Instead, they found teachers who could show them a new way to fight. The future remained uncertain, but humanity had found its role in the dimensional conflict. They would be the bridge between realities, the ones who could walk in multiple worlds while remembering the strength of limitation. The human factor wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about showing the universe a new way forward, beyond the unknown. 1 year after the first successful consciousness expansion program, Earth had changed. Cities now shimmered with subtle dimensional harmonics, visible only to those with enhanced perception. The alliance with the Nexeri had evolved into an uneasy partnership, with both species learning from each other's strengths. Admiral Sarah Wong, formerly lieutenant, stood aboard the bridge of the ESV Transcendence, humanity's first true dimensional warfare vessel. Unlike the Shadow Strike, this ship was designed to operate seamlessly across multiple dimensions, incorporating both Nexeri technology and human innovation. Contact, her first officer, Commander David Chen, reported. The dimensional distortions matched the Nexeri predictions. They're here. The threat the Nexeri had fled from, known simply as the Void Hunters, had finally reached Earth's sector of space. They moved through dimensions like sharks through water, consuming all in their path. But humanity had spent the last year preparing. All ships, Battle Formation Delta, Sarah ordered. The combined fleet of human and Nexeri vessels moved into position. The human ships, smaller but more numerous, carried modified versions of the dimensional containment technology. The Nexeri vessels, massive and fluid, rippled with dimensional energy. The Void Hunters emerged from tiers in reality, massive entities that seemed to exist in all dimensions at once, their true forms incomprehensible even to enhanced human perception. But Sarah had expected this. "Execute Operation Lighthouse," she commanded. Immediately, hundreds of human ships activated their containment fields in a coordinated pattern. Instead of trying to force the entities into 3 dimensions, they created a complex web of dimensional boundaries. The Nexeri had never considered such a strategy. Their instinct was to match the Void Hunters' dimensional complexity. But humanity's approach was different. They weren't trying to fight across all dimensions at once, but to control which dimensions the battle occurred in. "They're responding," Commander Chen reported. "The entities are being channeled exactly as predicted." The Void Hunters, finding their usual hunting grounds fragmented by human technology, were forced to concentrate their presence in specific dimensional planes. That's when the Nexeri fleet struck, their weapons finally able to focus on targets that couldn't simply slip away into other dimensions. But the entities weren't easily defeated. They adapted, learning to move through the gaps in the human containment network. Several ships were lost in the first counterattack, their crews experiencing final moments across multiple dimensions simultaneously. Sarah had anticipated this too. "Initiate Phase 2, she ordered. The survivors of the original Nexeri experiments, now fully trained in their enhanced abilities, activated a series of quantum resonators. The devices, based on their unique understanding of dimensional interaction, created a harmony that was painful to multi-dimensional awareness. The Void Hunters recoiled, their vast forms rippling with distress. For the first time in their ancient existence, they encountered something they couldn't simply absorb or evade. A weapon that used their own multi-dimensional nature against them. "All ships, converge on the primary target," Sarah commanded. The human fleet moved with precision, their containment fields herding the largest entity into a prepared trap. The Nexeri ships followed, their dimensional weapons primed. The battle that followed would be impossible to describe in 3-dimensional terms. Ships moved through planes of reality, weapons fired across dimensional boundaries, and space itself seemed to twist and fold. But throughout it all, humanity's strategy remained anchored in their unique perspective, using limitation as a weapon. The turning point came when Sarah ordered the activation of the quantum resonance cascade. Every human ship, every enhanced crew member, and every Nexari ally focused their dimensional energy into a single synchronized pulse. The effect was catastrophic for the Void Hunters. Unable to spread their consciousness across dimensions to escape the assault, the entities were forced to experience existence as limited beings. Their vast, multi-dimensional awareness became a liability, overwhelmed by the focused attack. The primary entity, trapped and wounded, did something unexpected. It tried to communicate. Sarah, her enhanced mind able to interpret the multi-dimensional signals, understood its message. Surrender. The Void Hunters, it seemed, had never encountered beings who could think across dimensions while maintaining the focus of limited perception. They had evolved to prey on species that either couldn't perceive them at all or tried to match their dimensional complexity. Humanity's approach was entirely outside their experience. As the battle ended and the surviving entities retreated, the Nexari fleet surrounded the Transcendents. Their communication carried tones of awe and fear. Humanity had succeeded where their civilization, with all its technological advancement, had failed for millennia. Admiral Wong stood on her bridge, watching the dimensional ripples settle. "We didn't win because we were stronger or more advanced," she told her crew. "We won because we understood something fundamental. Sometimes the greatest power comes from knowing your limitations and turning them into strengths." Her victory marked a turning point in human history. Earth became a beacon for other species fleeing the Void Hunters, a place where they could learn to defend themselves without losing their essential nature. The Consciousness Expansion Program evolved into a center for multidimensional studies, teaching beings from across the galaxy how to bridge the gap between limited and unlimited perception. The Nexari, humbled by the experience, became humanity's closest allies. Their technology, combined with human insight, led to discoveries that transformed both civilizations. The dimensional barriers that had once separated species became bridges of understanding. Sarah often stood at the observation deck of the New Earth Defense Academy, watching students from dozens of species learn to navigate the boundaries between dimensions. Some, like the Nexari, had to learn the value of limitation. Others, like newly spacefaring races, had to learn to expand their perception gradually and safely. The unknown hadn't become less mysterious or dangerous, but humanity had found its place within it. They were the bridge builders, the ones who could walk between worlds while remembering the importance of boundaries. In the end, the greatest discovery wasn't how to transcend dimensions, but how to maintain balance between them. As she watched a new class of cadets, human, Nexari, and others, practice dimensional navigation, Sarah smiled. The future was uncertain, full of challenges and wonders beyond current understanding. But humanity had proven that they could face the unknown without losing themselves in it. They had learned the most important lesson of all, that true strength comes not from escaping limitations, but from understanding them, working with them, and sometimes turning them into the very weapons that save civilization itself. The unknown would always beckon, but humanity had found its way to explore it while remaining uniquely, impossibly human.